was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something.
You know, the hits keep on coming with this. Some people did something? You mean terrorists took aircrafts, turned them into weapons, and flew them into the tallest buildings in New York City, killing 3,000 people? Some people did something, and CARE was formed to do something about it? You mean CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, who's an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation. And a member of the Democratic Party sitting in Congress right now says some people did something. This is where the politics of the moment are right now. Forgetting your history is a very, very dangerous thing. And recasting that history is even more dangerous. Jordan?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. When you have these members of Congress, and I think with Representative Omar, it should be more specific and more responsibility as a Muslim member of Congress to represent the facts, circumstances correctly. Instead, playing into every stereotype about CARE, about how the Muslim world sees the 9/11 terror attacks, and trivializing the 9/11 terror attacks. And when confronted about the trivializing of the 9/11 attacks, cries racism, Islamophobia. You can't discuss it. You can't confront the individuals like Congressman Omar. You can't question anything that she says. But we're not putting these words. I mean, she's going out there and specifically making these public comments. No one's digging around for it. It's not like it's
right.
It's literally being said at public events like the CARE fundraising dinner where there's cameras there and making these statements. And I think that's the very serious part. Is instead of representing the Muslim community, it's playing into every stereotype you would have.
All right, so Than, I'm thinking about this. If I'm Nancy Pelosi, if I'm in leadership in the Democratic Party in Congress, a majority party in the United States House of Representatives, and I've got statements like, we're getting penalized because somebody did something coming out of that. How are they responding to this?
Well, unfortunately, Jay, they're treating it like a political problem. And look, I'll give them this. It is a political problem. They've got establishment Democrats like Nita Lowey and Elliot Engel who are concerned about these comments. And then you've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Rashida Tlaib defending them, Jay. So there is a political problem there. But look, this is a substantive problem, Jay, because this is not just any backbench member of Congress. This is a member of Congress who sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And with this string of anti-Semitic remarks and now this disregard for the attacks of 9/11, Jay, she has a disproportionate voice in the foreign policy decisions of the United States. It is a substantive problem, and it is up to Speaker Pelosi and Leader Hoyer to take care of it. And, Jay, at this point, they're treating it like a political problem, and they're hoping it goes away.
Andy, you forget your history, it repeats itself.
Yeah,
we're rewriting the history here.
Those who forget history or who don't read it are condemned, is the expression, to repeat it. And what we have done is we've condemned ourselves. This was the most horrific attack on American soil that ever occurred. 3,000 Americans lost their lives. They were Muslim fundamentalist terrorists who engaged in the act. That is undeniable. Many were trained in the United States. One actually lived in a hotel near my house in Atlanta, Georgia, and was trained at a field. That is the some people did something. What a despicable remark.
All right, we've got a lot of topics we're talking about. The one we've started with, though, is this, I call it growing anti-Semitism. Now you're hearing it, as we just talked about, out of members of Congress. Join with us in condemning these actions. You can sign our petition at aclj.org or call the number that's on your screen. But let's stand up and stand against this issue of rising anti-Semitism. Again, aclj.org. That's aclj.org. Back with more in just a moment.
Israel is under constant deadly terrorist knife and rocket attacks. Jewish students, professors, and Christians who support Israel face vicious discrimination at U.S. universities, all in an attempt to delegitimize the state of Israel. Israel is our ally, the Jewish people our friends. It's our duty to defend them. That's why the ACLJ is launching a massive new multinational legal campaign in defense of Israel, in the U.S., at the UN, and with world leaders. But we need these global leaders to hear from you now. Add your name to our new petition, a petition to defend Israel from anti-Israel attacks across the globe. Call now 1-877 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. Or you can add your name online, aclj.org.
We've got a lot of topics we're talking about. The case is captioned State of California versus Alex Azar in his official capacity as U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services. This is a federal lawsuit. We have filed a brief at the district court level, which is not something we often do in these cases as an amicus. Abby Sutherland's here. Abby, let's talk about, first of all, there's not just one. So there's 3 cases that we're dealing with. Let's kind of set the framework of what we're actually talking about here. What are the issues we're dealing with?
Okay, so the issue is a rule implemented by the Trump administration back in February. It's called the Final Rule, and it's attached to Title 10, which essentially is a bill that allows Congress to attach conditions to federal funding.
Okay.
And allows Congress to set policy directives. So in this case, it's they're setting policy objectives that support family planning services for low-income families.
Yep.
Rather than promote abortion.
So how big of a change was that from previous rules?
And honestly, since the 70s, Title 10 has always supported family planning services over abortion.
Yep.
In 2000, that switched up a little bit.
Yep.
And so what they're trying to do is redirect and make sure and protect not only those seeking the family planning services, but the healthcare providers.
Yep.
Make sure they're protected and that they can encourage family planning services rather than promote abortion.
So, Fan, how big of I was asking that to Abby, too. So how big of a shift is it that we're defending right now?
Yeah, 180 degrees, Jay. I mean, let me put it to you this way. The statute that underlines this program says that none of the funds appropriated in it can be used in programs where abortion is a method of family planning. But, Jay, for decades, the regulations out of the Department of Health and Human Services have actually required the exact opposite. They say that to get these funds, you have to refer and counsel for abortion. So exactly the opposite of what Congress said they must do. So the Trump administration, Jay, has changed this 180 degrees, but they've changed it 180 degrees so that it now complies with federal law. It says that pro-life centers that want to engage in family planning services can get this. And, Jay, it restores the federal prohibition against those dollars going to abortion. And, Jay, let me tell you this. This is not just a win to make sure abortionists don't get tax dollars. This is a win to make sure that poor women who need these services as they're preparing for a family, Jay, that those dollars from the federal government that were intended for them, that they reach them.
I think that the bigger picture when you step back is that these battles are being had. You know, the life battles are being had. We were talking about before we went on here today the amount of
we're going to get to that in a minute.
Pro-life legislation. The amount of
huge.
The states that are taking action and saying, you know, we will battle this. Well, we know the fight's coming. We know the lawsuit's coming, but we're willing to fight it out.
So let's talk about what we filed. So we filed one. We've got 3 briefs that are going in the file. We filed the first one.
We filed the first one in a district court yesterday in California.
Okay.
We have 2 more that we will file on Monday in Oregon District Court.
Same issue?
Court. Same issue.
Okay.
Essentially, states want federal funding, but they don't want to comply with the policy objectives.
Yeah, so especially states that are very liberal on their abortion laws. Andy, what's your sense of reading the briefs?
Well, we've done an excellent job in crystallizing the issues, and I'm very proud of the brief that we've written in the case, and I think it's very persuasive, and I think it's something that we should be proud that the American Center for Law and Justice is weighing in on this issue and has done, as I said, and I've read the brief just this morning, and I thought it was an excellent job of presenting the case on behalf of life.
Yeah. So, Harry, you look at because I'm going to ask Abby in a moment the number of life legislations, but there is a shift happening. There's no question on the life issue, and it's both litigation and legislation. I think there's a consensus starting to build that we need to be supporting more of a culture of life.
I think that is correct, and I think the the American Center for Law and Justice has consistently engaged states and the federal government to advance the pro-life cause, including filing amicus briefs in important cases, and many of these important cases issue forth from the Ninth Circuit. And they're filed there for a particular reason.
Right.
It's important to note that, as the brief says, in one of the cases, the one that we have filed, is that a preliminary injunction is an extraordinary and drastic remedy.
And that's what they're trying to. The states are trying to get a preliminary injunction against the law.
Precisely. And so the states essentially are alleging that there's a violation of the Administrative Procedures Act and a violation of the First Amendment, even though the regulation is in full compliance with the statutory language. So one of the things that is very, very important for listeners to know is that the Trump administration is attempting to do what? To follow the law. Prior administrations were allowing the law to be effectively amended by bureaucrats, experts who believe that individuals in the United States should not be able to control their own lives consistent with the rule of law. So this is a very, very important brief that we have filed.
Let's go back to the phone. Scott's called in from South Carolina on line 1. Scott, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hi, Scott.
Hey, gentlemen, how you doing?
Good.
First, I want to say to the Colonel, second to none, brother. Been there, done that. This is a great thing that the president's doing, protecting the Hyde Amendment. However, the problem lies in the government's willingness to allow Planned Parenthood to self-audit. I read the 2016 audit, and it was all done on their own. So they're not going to tell the truth that they're using our federal funds for abortion.
Well, it is. I mean, there's no question that it's a move, Abby. It moves. They're just, some of this is they move money around. They say we're not using it for abortion, but it frees them up by getting these funds for other projects. It frees them up to use their own funds for abortion.
Right.
So that's part of the problem here.
It is.
Okay, so let's talk about the legislation, though. The movement on pro-life legislation, I think, is unprecedented, given the numbers are staggering. So what do we have?
They are. It's estimated that there have been 250 pro-life bills introduced into state legislatures since 2019. So just in the last 3 months, 250 pro-life measures.
This year?
This year.
I mean, this tells you the shift that is taking place. Now, we got to be smart in that legislation. You got to, because these are going to, is there any doubt in your mind that any pro-life bill passed in any state, Abby, will be challenged? Is there any doubt in your mind?
No doubt. They will all be challenged, as has already been demonstrated, regardless of whether it's a heartbeat bill, a bill to ban all abortions, or a bill just to limit the funding of abortions.
What does the heartbeat bills generally say?
Generally, that once you can detect a heartbeat in the mother's womb, you can no longer commit an abortion, unless there's always the life of the mother exception.
So basically recognizing the personhood of the unborn child. But now in the House of Representatives, there's going to be no pro-life legislation moving forward. No question?
Yeah. Nothing's going to move unless, Jay, you can do it through a discharge petition, which there is one existing on the Born Alive of Abortion Survivors Act. There's 200 signatures on it right now, need 18 more. But, Jay, just really quickly to echo Abby's point, Maryland, where I live, they're so extreme that they just passed a law and sent it to the governor. We're waiting to see if he's going to sign it, that said, we're not going to take any of those federal dollars because we can't use it for abortion. So, Jay, they're putting on me, the Maryland resident, the obligation to make up that shortfall. That's how extreme they are.
It's the abortion distortion factor. We talk about it a lot, whether it's legislation, litigation, whatever it might be. There it is. But the clear that there is a move for life. All right, we've got a lot of topics we're talking about. The one we've started with, though, is this, I call it growing anti-Semitism. Now you're hearing it, as we just talked about, out of members of Congress. Join with us in condemning these actions. You can sign our petition at aclj.org or call the number that's on your screen. But let's stand up and stand against this issue of rising anti-Semitism. Again, aclj.org. That's aclj.org. Back with more in just a moment.
Israel is under constant deadly terrorist knife and rocket attacks. Jewish students, professors, and Christians who support Israel face vicious discrimination at U.S. universities, all in an attempt to delegitimize the state of Israel. Israel is our ally, the Jewish people our friends. It's our duty to defend them. That's why the ACLJ is launching a massive new multinational legal campaign in defense of Israel, in the U.S., at the UN, and with world leaders. But we need these global leaders to hear from you now. Add your name to our new petition, a petition to defend Israel from anti-Israel attacks across the globe. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. Or you can add your name online, aclj.org.
We're talking about the statements by Congresswoman Ilhan Omar on 9/11. Some people did something. It was the front page today of the New York Post, and it has the Twin Towers with the 2,977 people dead by terrorism. And here's your something. And she's really, again, not recognizing the outrage, not recognizing what people even take issue with some people did something. She clearly didn't want to say Muslims did this,
Islamic
radical terror
did this.
And specifically say, and that's why. And she was wrong on CARE. CARE was already existed before 9/11. So I don't know. Even that is not correct. This conspiracy theory that the Council on American Islamic Relations had to come about because of the 9/11 terror. There was not some widespread violence against American Muslims. There never has been that widespread violence. There have been incidents, but it's still the number one group in the United States that faces threats like this is the Jewish community in America. The most attacks, the most specific. So I think that when you look at everything here, it is, and she's gone on Stephen Colbert, so she's putting herself out there.
Oh yeah. This is intentional.
Not tracing some junior member of Congress.
Right. So, Harry, I was asked you this during the break. I think it's worth repeating to the radio audience, and that is this whole idea. What do they think they're accomplishing by this? I mean, why would you, if you're in leadership in the Democratic Party, why would you say you got to knock this off?
Well, number one, I'm not sure Representative Omar would listen.
Yeah.
Number two, I think she has been, for lack of a better term, permanently radicalized. And the more opposition she receives, even from members of her own party, in my view, that pushes her further and further to the left as she embraces, if you will, almost a left-wing conspiracy approach to life. And so she is prepared to diminish the loss of life of 3,000 Americans. And if you go to New York City, you can still see 9/11 memorials. There are still individuals who are recovering amputees, individuals who were injured in terms of rescuing 9/11 victims.
First responders, right.
And some of those people are still dying because of the long-term impacts that they have suffered in terms of ingesting smoke and
chemicals in the air.
And so what Representative Omar is prepared to do is that she is prepared to minimize the suffering incurred by Americans in order to satisfy some left-wing agenda, which is often fabricated and often fictional.
What I don't understand, though, Andy, is I'm trying to, I see what Harry's saying is the end purpose, but that really gets you nowhere. I mean, politically, it's a dead end.
Well, she has no political sense whatsoever. All she is just out there, a voice crying in the wilderness among the Muslims who listen to her. The vast majority of the Muslim community in the United States are good, well-meaning people who go to work every day and do their jobs and are trying to integrate into society. But she is appealing to a core who are radicalized like she is and who do not understand what it is to be an American. Your grandparents and mine came to this country at the beginning of the 20th century, and they became Americans.
Right.
That was what their goal was.
Right.
They forsook their ancient land. They gave up their allegiance to foreign leaders, and they became Americans. And if this had happened in the 19-teens and 1920s, Jay, our grandparents would have decried it and would have said it was a horrible thing to do to the country they loved. Instead of making the stupid, foolish, inane remark, some people did something. Yes, some radical Muslims killed 3,000 Americans in New York City.
Innocent Americans. Let me play what Representative Tlaib said supporting Representative Omar, and then I want to get Dan's comment on this.
My sister Ilhan Omar, what she was talking about was uplifting people by supporting their civil liberties and civil rights. She has always condemned any strategy, especially of a person that's directly impacted by being a refugee herself. She sees what terrorism can do. She sees what violence can do to a whole country, to a whole people. Taking it out of context, this is just pure racist act by many of those, hateful acts by those, because she does speak truth.
Okay, so Than, obviously they're not, they're not censoring her. They're not censuring her. They're doing nothing. What are they doing here?
Yeah. They're not doing anything. They're demonstrating a fear of the political energy that is behind Congressman Omar, which, by the way, I don't think it's that significant, but Speaker Pelosi is pandering to it right now. And I would tell you this, Congressman Tlaib also took to Twitter and said, shame on the New York Post. By the way, the New York Post, who sits right there by the victims of 9/11, said shame on the New York Post for taking this issue on. But, Jay, here's the point. Speaker Pelosi, I think Jordan's correct that she would not want to pick this fight, but, Jay, she has the power to do something about it, and her silence is speaking volumes because she refuses to take Congressman Omar off the House Foreign Affairs Committee. So I don't think she wanted this fight, Jay, and she's got a political problems on her hand, but she is the one with the power to fix it, and by doing nothing, in my view, Jay, she's now part and parcel of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, I believe, honestly, they created her. So if this is a junior member...
You're saying they created her politically...
Because they allow her to make the statements, and they don't go at... If it's a junior member of Congress, and you have you have a freshman Republican,
right?
Most of them get no attention. They don't get airtime. They're not going on Stephen Colbert. They're not engaging. And if they did something this out of line, where you've had criticisms and you had condemnations already in the past, you've had to bring this up, that would be it for them. But they're letting her get away with this, and I think it's just very telling about how far they're getting pushed around by a junior member of Congress with no constituency, no major political base, not some strong, gigantic fundraiser. I mean, this was a state rep in Minnesota who won a predominantly Muslim district, basically the only district she could win in the United States ever in her entire life.
True.
And yet they're elevating her. So she's going on late night shows, and she's speaking as a Democrat, not as a freshman representative who's an outlier, and that is, I think, what is most hurtful to the Democrat Party. And so, short-term benefits of fundraising, short-term benefits of younger community, they're allowing an Islamic political belief to kind of take over, and I think that's very dangerous for them even in the short term, even into the presidential race. Do you want this person running around representing the Democrat Party?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and take some calls. 1-800-684-3110.
Ron's calling from South Carolina on line 2. Ron, welcome to JSEC Hill Live.
Hi, Ron.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for taking my call. I just find it so disgusting that a representative in America would actually minimize that event of 9/11, and it just infuriates me. I don't know what to say, Jay.
Well, this is this. I'm Harry. This is the same. I mean, if you're you're our policy director. If you're the policy director for the DNC, wouldn't you be saying this is not helpful?
I think you're absolutely correct, and I think if Representative Omar was prepared to even listen to former President Obama, she would recognize that her statements are not very helpful. President Obama, speaking, for instance, in Berlin last week, announced his support for the idea that immigrants and immigrant communities need to assimilate. They need to absorb the values of the country that they have come to. And so that would require Representative Omar to actually understand the rule of law and the Constitution and the fact that 9/11 was a deeply hurtful experience that cannot be washed away by mere left-wing words.
I think that we're all still everybody. I think you study history on this, Andy. I think history is going to show that our country is still struggling to get your head around what was able to take place on 9/11. I mean, not that there was just this hatred in the Islamic world, but everything that transpired before that and that led to that point, and then to minimize it like this is horrific.
It is. It was a turning point in American history, of course. You know, in my generation, I think of the assassination of President Kennedy. This was a turning point in history. You don't minimize that event. And the other generations, the attempted assassination of President Reagan. Now here we're driving down the street, going to work at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we hear that the Twin Towers has been attacked, and we finally realize that it is Muslim terrorists, not from the yeshiva, not from New York, not Jews, not Greeks, but Muslim terrorists who have attacked the United States and who have killed 3,000 people. That is very important to realize, and you don't trivialize it by just saying out of hand, 19 years later, 20 years later, some people did something. What a foolish and abhorrent remark to make.
That does it for the broadcast today. We've got a petition up to stand against this growing tide of anti-Semitism that we're seeing here in the United States and around the world. And when I say rising in the United States, let me tell you, it's coming out of a small group of people that have an amplified voice in the United States Congress. So I want you to stand against that. Join with us at aclj.org. You can sign that petition or call the number that's on your screen. We'll talk to you next week.
Israel is under constant deadly terrorist knife and rocket attacks. Jewish students, professors, and Christians who support Israel face vicious discrimination at U.S. universities, all in an attempt to delegitimize the state of Israel. Israel is our ally. The Jewish people are friends. It's our duty to defend them. That's why the ACLJ is launching a massive new multinational legal campaign in defense of Israel, in the U.S., at the UN, and with world leaders. But we need these global leaders to hear from you now. Add your name to our new petition, a petition to defend Israel from anti-Israel attacks across the globe. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255. Or you can add your name online, aclj.org.